Today, nearly 7 years later, the conservative majority on the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Trump's ban on bump stocks. In a 6-3 decision that split the justices along ideological lines, the court has chosen to put fully automatic machine guns in the hands of any American who wants one. It is somewhat difficult to muster the energy to be shocked by that decision, because it is exactly the kind of ruling we have come to expect from a court that has been radicalized to push a conservative agenda against the public interest and against public support. In 2022, the court made it significantly easier for anyone in this country to carry a concealed weapon. That decision came in the same term that the court conservatives gave the right wing the thing they had been fighting for 50 years, overturning Roe v. Wade and ending the federal right to abortion. The following year, the court handed conservatives a victory they had again sought for decades by ending race-based affirmative action at American colleges and universities. It's fairly evident at this point that the Roberts Court is working almost exclusively to enact a conservative agenda, whether that's catering to the NRA and the gun lobby, or shrinking the federal government whenever and however possible, or by enabling a conservative majority that seeks to hold on to power using undemocratic means. And there is still more of this work ahead. Right now, we are awaiting yet another abortion ruling from the Roberts Court, one that could significantly hinder doctors' ability to provide critical abortion care to people who need it. We are awaiting another firearms decision from this court, one that will determine whether people accused of domestic abuse can purchase a weapon. We are awaiting a set of decisions where the court could decide to significantly curtail the government's ability to regulate the safety of the food we eat and the safety of the water we drink. We are awaiting a decision in a case that could see charges or convictions tossed out for hundreds of insurrectionists who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And we are very much still awaiting a decision on Donald Trump's request for absolute presidential immunity, where at best the court will have significantly delayed justice for a former president who tried to overturn a legitimate election, or at worst, the court will sanction a president seeking to assassinate his rivals without consequence. If it feels like this is just a mountain of major decisions, that's because it is. As Mark Joseph Stern writes at Slate, the justices are preparing to hand down roughly 14 extraordinarily high-profile opinions, triple or quadruple the number of an ordinary term. Joining me now is Leah Littman, professor at the University of Michigan Law School and co-host of the excellent podcast Strict Scrutiny. Also with us is the great Michelle Goldberg, New York Times opinion columnist and an MSNBC political analyst. Leah, I was struck by some of the tone, even in Kavanaugh's opinion for the majority, where he writes, the plaintiffs are pro-life, they oppose elective abortion, and they have sincere legal, moral, ideological, and policy objections to mifepristone being prescribed and used by others. It is quite clear that these conservative justices are sympathetic to the fundamental argument. Am I misreading that?
No, I don't think so. And I think part of the concern is that by dismissing the case on standing grounds and finding that these doctors could not bring the lawsuit, they basically didn't have to answer the questions that were raised in the case about whether, for example, the FDA was correct to originally approve mifepristone, whether the regulations expanding access to mifepristone, allowing it to be provided via telemedicine, are lawful, nor did they address the possibility of the Comstock Act being revived as some kind of weird zombie nationwide abortion ban that wouldn't actually have to go through Congress, but some future Republican president and attorney general could enforce. And so what they did is they just said, we're not going to resolve any of those issues now, i.e. before the presidential election. And that essentially puts the issue in the hands of the voters who are going to decide whether to elect someone who wants to enforce the Comstock Act or someone who doesn't.
Well, and I mean, not settling it before the election also helps Republicans who know this is a losing issue for them electorally. I do wonder, though, there's not the same amount of smoke and mirrors when it comes to the gun lobby, Michelle, and what your reaction to their ruling on bump stocks is, especially in light of the ruling they are going to make about whether domestic abusers should have access to firearms.
Right. Well, I would say not just that ruling, but what I find really disturbing about this ruling. I mean, first of all, on the merits, it's, this kind of ridiculous like highly technical argument that about what a machine gun is and whether the function of whether kind of the single function of the trigger is about what your finger does or what the internal mechanics of the gun does. I mean, really kind of recondite stuff. And, I think that Sonia Sotomayor had it right when she said something to the effect of, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck.
It's a duck. If it looks like a machine gun and behaves like a machine gun, it's a machine gun.
Right. And not just that, but, there's machine guns are illegal. And then there's a separate law from the 60s that implements that convert guns into machine guns illegal. And so it's, so this is a, kind of, it shows their radicalism, but it's not a radical. In this particular case, this isn't a Second Amendment decision. It's
an agency call.
It's an agent, right? And so they also have a big ruling coming up where a lot of people expect them to basically gut the ability of not just the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, but kind of all federal agencies to pass regulations.
To do what they do, which is to regulate.
Right. And so this is, I think that this is, an augur of kind of a more shocking remaking of basically the kind of federal government.
Yeah, and I think Michelle is talking about the Chevron cases and JARCSI. I'm not a Supreme Court reporter, but there are two big cases that Michelle's referring to here, Leah, that would basically undermine the power of federal agencies to do their work, which is, first of all, the fact that Clarence Thomas is weighing in on the machinery of a bump stock clip in relation to machine gun clips. This is not what Supreme Court justices traditionally do. That is the work of the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The court doesn't want ATF regulating bump stocks, and so basically took their power away to do so today. And they have even bigger fish to fry in these forthcoming cases. Do you think we're going to see a wholesale revisitation of one of the central planks of sort of judicial deference to federal agencies?
I think we are going to see a massive realignment and reallocation of decision-making authority within the federal government. Under the current system, the Chevron doctrine, as you were explaining, allows administrative agencies to adopt regulations that fill in gaps that are left by statutes that Congress enacts. If the court does away with the Chevron doctrine, it will be assuming that power for itself. That is, the people who just use 6 pictures and an animated GIF that were supplied by a gun advocacy group in order to justify unleashing bump stocks on the American people, those are the people that are going to be deciding the future of health, safety, medical, food, drug, environmental regulation if they actually do overrule Chevron. And there's also the JARCSI case, as you noted, that could also limit the power of agencies. There's also a case about an additional climate regulation, Ohio versus EPA. This June is just a catastrophic storm waiting to happen.
Can I follow up on that, Leah? Because it's just a staggering number of cases to begin with that they took on of huge national import. And it's not July yet. It's June 14th. They are going to dump these opinions on the American public and the American press, in a way that threatens to overwhelm anybody's ability to make sense of them.
I think that's correct. And this is in some ways the new normal. The court is taking on a smaller number of cases, but a larger number of these huge, high profile, ideologically significant cases that could remake the American government and then loading up those decisions at the end of the term so that people are, as you suggest, just overwhelmed. Last term, in a single week, we were getting affirmative action decisions on West Virginia versus EPA, the Future of Clean Power Plan, also the case about LGBTQ equality and whether laws guaranteeing LGBTQ equality could be enforced in all circumstances. The term before that, it was about the future of gun control in Bruin, coupled with Dobbs, the court overruling Roe. Those decisions came back to back. And so the court is loading up these decisions, taking on smaller number of cases, but also bigger, more significant cases, and I think attempting to skirt the public radar.